Those who hammer their swords into plowshares will surely plow for those who do not. Okay, so I paraphrased that. It's an old saying. But now, friend, off to the fields of choice. Shall we fight or shall we farm? Perhaps you've given yourself the freedom, after our recent discussions, to look at the world through the blinders that we've talked about. Maybe you've even taken the next step and removed what's left of the mask and allow the world to see it all. I do my best to lay it on the line here for you, and for the most part, what you see is what you get. So, what happens next? We're exposed, or at least no longer hiding. Whether anyone else is paying attention is of minor consequence now. I'd have you consider that there's a version of you that's comfortable with the truth, even if, even when, that truth is inconvenient and painful. Let's assume you like what you see in that metaphorical mirror, flaws and all. It's time to decide what to do with it. I think we discussed that there's really no going back. And after all, why would you want to, but for a sense of distrust and discomfort with the way forward? The good news, it's yours to choose. On the other hand, let's assume you don't like what you see. There's some stuff you don't want to pack along with you. Perhaps some of those flaws, they stand out to you and more than you're comfortable with. Before grabbing the sword and charging headlong into the fray, it's worth noting that they've probably been with you a considerable amount of time. I know mine are not new, and I know that there's no reason for me to go crashing into them like some sort of berserker. We've got time to pause. Now that we can see clearly, we almost have an obligation of sorts to take a few minutes and look with an honest eyes at take the somewhat objective representation of ourselves. I mean, it should reveal room for growth if we can get beyond that which dissatisfies us and identify the weakness in our flaw. I can tell you that as I've undertaken this journey, and yes, sometimes it starts over with each new sunrise, I've had to take stock of what I might be bringing with me that I ought not. I'm far from perfect, as you might have observed, and I make my share of mistakes. Do you have permission to make mistakes without guilt or shame? Because I'd have you consider as well that you're the only one who can grant yourself that permission. There's got to be room for us to forgive ourselves for our mistakes, right? I mean, nobody else can do it for us, no matter what their level of effort. One way or another, we have to find a way to come to terms with what those in the recovery rooms might label character defects or shortcomings. Okay, maybe it's not mandatory, but at the same time, there's not much room left to stand still on that fine line of balance. We're either growing or we're not. But we are on the field, friend, and it is time to choose. You're going to pick up the sword and fight? You're going to grab the plow and set to the work. Which did you choose today? Have you considered you have to do both? And that sometimes you're going to find yourself steering the plow with one hand, holding the sword at the ready in the other. Sometimes we've got to fight to gain the ground that we would till. We may be victorious or we may be defeated in any given skirmish, but that engagement is what sets the conditions for us to become teachable. I've certainly learned more from my losses than my wins. But when the ground we've gained is hard packed, it's work to break that hard pack and often blood-stained dirt and turn it into fertile soil once again. See, I grew up on a farm, and after a few growing seasons, even the fields that are regularly tended need to be turned at a deeper level. Row by row, this can be a painful process for us, even if we're undertaking it willingly. The plowshare turns up things that have been neatly packed away. We're moving at our own pace through it. We're making progress despite the odds and the hard work. But what happens then when we're unwilling? And what happens when the soil of our experience is turned by a life-changing type of event? Ooh, the darkness is below is now dispelled in the light of the day, but the worms and the roots from the crops of seasons past and prior now laid bare in the sun to be picked apart by the crows. Do you drop the plow? Do you reach for the sword at that point? Occasionally we need to, if only to defend that which we've worked so hard to seed. We must give what's been planted a chance, even if the field is far from done. It's tough going. Sometimes it's even more difficult to stop. The landscape's rough and rugged. It's going to take time before there's smooth walking between the growing rows again. Time where we hold steady and allow the ground to be softened and healed again by the rains. Day by day, we fight and we farm, denying neither the plowshare nor the sword, and leaning not too heavily on either one. You've got my take. What say you?